Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Molly,
I'm Michael.
and today we are going to be chatting all about The Traitors, season 4, episode 8. And this was an exciting episode. I felt like we got a lot to talk about here. So, what are your thoughts overall before we dive into it, Michael?
Yeah, I am enjoying the second half of this season a lot more than I did the first. I think the first half was just very sad, as we've mentioned before, that it wasn't bad. I just think there were so many people who were being murdered that and banished that I had very high hopes for. And so it was sad to see them go when they had so much potential. But now that we've gotten to the second half of the season and the traders are just imploding on each other, I think that we're in for a very fun back half of the season here that I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk about.
For sure. Well, speaking of the traders imploding on each other, we start off with seeing Rob and Candiace meeting in the turret after Lisa's banishment, and Rob asked Candiace why she voted for him, and she explained that she didn't think that there was enough evidence to go after Lisa, so she just did a throwaway vote instead on Rob. But then, out of spite, Rob does not warn her of Colton's suspicions about her, so he can try to control some of that power there still. And Candiace has continued to deny in interviews that she was being petty with her Rob vote, but overall, obviously, like wasn't we talked about this a little bit last week, but it wasn't really great on the part of it being so obvious. Like now, if Candiace is shown to be a traitor, then it kind of could point into Rob's direction there too. So that's also why Rob was definitely upset about that. So what did you think about Candiace denying in interviews and overall the Rob vote?
Yeah, I mean, I think Candace, look, I love Candace. I think, though, that she is very stubborn. And I think that I don't even know, I wonder if she really doesn't believe that it was petty in her mind, but I just don't see a world where it wasn't petty. I mean, it was just clearly to me, she was very upset with the way that Rob had betrayed his fellow traders, which understandable to be upset about that when it clearly puts you in a bad position, put Lisa in a bad position, put all three of you in potentially a very dangerous spot. And I think that she probably didn't feel like voting for Lisa, that would have maybe looked more suspicious because she's voting for another housewife. So she probably felt like she didn't want to go that direction. I don't really understand why she didn't go Natalie's direction. I feel like she very easily could have said that she didn't believe her. So I think like if she was thinking just purely strategically and didn't want to go against a fellow housewife, I think she so easily could have just done Natalie. And so to me, that's all the evidence that I need to be able to say, yes, she was being petty by putting that vote on Rob.
Yeah, for sure. It did seem very petty to me as well that I was like, and I don't know Candace as well as you do as well. Obviously, I didn't watch her season or watch her in Real Housewives, but I think that overall, like, obviously Rob had the evidence and had like there was substantial stuff to go after Lisa there, and Candace just could have done it against Natalie instead of Rob there. So
Yeah. And I just think that she doesn't want to admit that she was taking it personally there. And I think it's understandable. I think if she were to just say that, then I think I would understand it that like you're in your feelings. You're not a gamer. You're not somebody who watches these shows religiously and knows how to separate that game and personal as well as some other people do on this cast or did before they got murdered. But I could see that. Like, I think, yeah, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have voted for Rob. It put a spotlight on me that wouldn't have been there otherwise. And I just think that she is a little bit too prideful to be able to say that.
yeah, for sure. But then we see Alan then walks in and lets them know that they have a choice to murder as usual or seduce another traitor. And they decide that they would rather murder than seduce. So then the names they consider are Stephen, Colton, and Natalie. Did you think that they made the right choice here to murder instead of getting a new traitor?
Yeah, I thought this was interesting. I probably do, because I do think that Rob would have likely gained an ally. Like, I think it was probably the right choice for Candiace, because I do
Yeah.
think that whoever they selected, I don't think that Rob would have let her choose somebody who would not have been on his side. Like, I think that he would have really put his foot down on that. And so I think that probably for Candace's sake, that this was a better move, because I think he was more likely to give in on a murder than a seducing. And that could have, having two against one in the Traitors turret would have probably been a even worse situation for her.
Mhm.
So yeah, I probably do. Now for Rob, I don't know. I think that maybe Rob would have been better off to get another traitor in there that he could work with to convince people if he wanted to get Candace out or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't have been willing to go full traitor on traitor their first day in the turret. So I don't know. I think it would have been interesting.
Yeah, it almost like it went by so quickly that they even had the option to get someone new. Like it almost seemed like they didn't really float it that much in their heads. Like they were just like, no, we don't need another person.
Hmm.
And then just wanted to murder someone because they were trusting in their own games and that they want to continue and trying to get out the rest. And obviously, Rob and Candace need to build that trust with each other right now. And I don't. It didn't really happen throughout this episode, but if they were trying to work together as a team, like this would have been the chance too, and like just the two of them left, like instead of getting a third one in the mix. But yeah, they choose to murder, so we don't know who of the three, but I was leaning towards I thought it would have been Steven out of those
I do
three.
too.
So we'll get to who it actually turns out to be just in a second, because then at breakfast, the faithfuls then will start to get gross suspicious of Candace due to her throwaway vote for Rob. So we're seeing this come up again. So that's not looking too great for Candace. But then when she arrives, they question her about it. And she just said that she was planning to vote for Natalie, but believed her defense at the round table. And so then she just voted for Rob, knowing nobody else would be voting for him. So that was like just her trying to cover her traces there. But I don't know if everyone really believed that. And Dorinda also defended her in saying that it was the same as her vote for Mora, that she just couldn't vote Lisa. But did you think Candace did a good job here defending herself?
I think that she did what she could do. I think that the problem was, I don't think that she should have said this was a throwaway vote. I think that from the start, I think that was the biggest mistake, because, like people started to kind of point out, like Mora especially, I feel like it's not like her to do a throwaway vote. She had been so intent on voting for who she was suspicious of. Like, she was suspicious of Ron all those weeks, and she voted for him. And I
Mhm.
just think that it was a change of personality to then all of a sudden do a throwaway vote,
Yeah.
that especially when they just got a traitor out and they're suspicious now of looking for people who have a change in behavior, that maybe there was a recruitment or a seducing or whatever they call it now, that I think that that was a bad choice, because now she is actually going to be throwing her suspicions on Rob. And so then it's like, well, what's the truth? Were you suspicious of him, or was it a throwaway vote? And I just think that from the beginning, coming up with some reason why you were suspicious of Rob, or something that he did, something that he said, I think would have felt more realistic.
Yeah, I agree. The throwaway comment definitely didn't really land for people, especially with Mora bringing that up too, of it being like, well, your gameplay just really changed after this. Like, what's happening? And it seemed that she just didn't have really a great defense for herself there. Just she just wanted to try to forget about it, but obviously people were not going to forget about it. And her pettiness is obviously coming out to bite a little bit here.
Yeah.
But then it is revealed that Colton was murdered. So that was interesting when the three of them came in. That was not Colton included in that. The last bunch who came into breakfast. And Candiace wanted to cut the alliance that he had with Rob since she believed that Rob used Colton to take out Lisa and could have done the same with her. So Rob, however, he was fine with it, and it was also because that Candace didn't know that Colton was already floating her name, so that draws the direct line to her. So it kind of worked out in the favor for Rob in the end here, but Candace didn't really know that going into it because Rob didn't tell her that Colton was floating her name, and obviously this is I hope I was hoping it would be Colton, but like I didn't think he would get murdered. Like I thought they would just get him out as a banishment and continue with some speculation against him. But were you surprised to see this?
I was so surprised. I couldn't believe it. When I saw everybody who was walking in, I was like trying to figure out, okay, who's there, who's not there. And I thought, oh, they decided to seduce because I'm seeing Stephen, I'm seeing Natalie.
Mhm.
Like, okay, I guess they went that direction. But then when I realized, oh, Colton's not here, what in the world? That was shocking to me. That was not at all what I even thought was in the realm of possibility here because Rob just seemed so intent on being like, no, that's my best friend. But once he explained the thought process behind allowing that to happen, I thought, all right. I mean, look, it's. I am very impressed by Rob. He's always to me felt like when this cast was first announced, I thought, oh, he's going to not care enough to actually really play this game and strategize. And I thought he was going to be as miserable there as he was on Love Island. But it turns out I didn't know this, but I guess he's a Survivor fan, and so he does know the strategy, and he is playing a really good game. And I don't even just say that as like from what I thought he would be like to what he is. I think even if we had high expectations for him, I think that he is playing a very, very good trader game. One of the probably top 5 or 6 that I can think of Trader seasons that and I mean I think we're gonna have to see if he can get out of this next round. I think if he can, if he is able to still not be suspicious, then I think he's one of the best traders we've seen.
I agree. I'm really impressed by his game as well. I feel like obviously, like I was shocked to see, like we were all shocked to see Colton go, but him explaining that it just really solidified. Oh, like he really is playing this game, and even when like Colton like would pull Rob aside, like even Colton wasn't suspecting Rob, and like they were so close, and like all those conversations, like Colton was pretty spot on with certain people, so him not even thinking about Rob goes to show like that's a good gameplay too of how Rob has been playing and overall just his relationships with other people and in the house having that trust and everyone it seems like not everyone but like a lot of people and that's been really good for his game and obviously the him getting out of Traitor looked good in a way because it's like okay like I'm on the faithful side like if I'm trying to get out the traitors here so we'll have to see how he can if he can get through this next one obviously because Candace had voted for him twice so we'll have to see oh spoiler alert but like we'll have to see later on if he can out, out outlast the to the end but
Outwit, outplay,
it's
outlast. Yeah.
yeah I know. I'm thinking survivor now but we'll have to see because I think it was definitely a good gameplay on his part.
Yeah, and I think what he's doing really well too is that I feel like to compare it to like what Dan Giesling did in season 2, where he just kind of all of a sudden out of nowhere in a desperate move just said it's Phaedra. And he had never brought her name up before. Nobody had really brought her name up before. And so it felt like okay, I know she's a traitor because I'm a traitor. And it just put a direct line to him. And then as soon as he was revealed to be a traitor, it put a direct line on Phaedra too. And he just kind of blew up both of their games. But I think what Rob is doing really well here is that he is kind of slowly trickling her name around the castle before the round table, before anything. And so because of that, it doesn't feel like it's so desperate. It doesn't feel like it's so in just a move of it's me or her, and I'm just gonna pull a desperate out of nowhere move. And I think he's doing a good job of kind of building that case slowly, and so it feels more realistic. It feels like, oh, I just kind of had this thought, and I'm gonna kind of slowly put the word out to different people. And so at the round table, it's like, yeah, it's a known fact that he's suspicious of Candace. That and so it just feels more realistic.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just a shock to everyone that you're bringing up someone's name. Like it's been in the conversations, like maybe he's bringing up too much in some ways, but like in other parts, it's like at least he's talking about the people before actually going up into the round table. So
Right.
it's interesting to see if other traders in the future will take note of that and how it impacts. But for right now, he's doing great.
You're doing
And we'll have
amazing,
to see.
sweetie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But then the players around the castle are throwing out their suspicions across multiple people, but Tara starts to suspect, or she still suspects Natalie, while Johnny is looking at Steven, and then Eric tells Mark, Natalie, Steven, and Rob that he believes that Candace could be a traitor. And then Rob reveals to them that Candace was the last name that Colton told him before he was murdered. So that's the big tell here that obviously, like, well, Rob is going to now start floating around Candace. I wasn't sure how strongly he was going to go after her. Obviously, it sounded like he was trying to maybe work with her in the turret. It seemed like that was probably a lie, though. Obviously, now we see that. And then at the same time, Candace is also throwing out Rob's name to Kristen and Johnny. So more of this traitor on traitor, and I feel like obviously at this point we know they've turned on each other, as we've seen them now talking about each other to other people. So it's kind of like I was kind of hoping for them to work together in a small part of me, but also like, okay, like it is fun to see traitor on traitor fighting. But what did you think about this? And do you think that they should have made more of an effort to still work together despite their mistrust?
Yeah, I think that the question for me was not necessarily whether they were going to actually work together, because I think it was too far gone at this point to be able to really trust each other. But I guess my question was whether they were going to be already fully just like no holds barred, just my one singular goal is to get you out of this castle, or whether it was going to be more of a thing of like, okay, I'm not going to throw your name out there, be the first to do it, but if the tide is going that direction, I'm not going to try to change course. And I'm just going to kind of go along with it. So I kind of was hoping that it would be the latter, that they would not necessarily like, I think it's more fun, sure, for them to fully go at each other. But also they're like two of the people that I'm rooting for in this game. So I'm like, I'm hoping just for my own sake. I think it's very fun to have two traders go at each other for multiple weeks and not have it all end in this one episode. And so I think this would have been a very fun rivalry, a la Danielle and Carolyn last season. And that lasted a while because neither of them were murdered or well, obviously not murdered, but neither of them were banished for
Yeah.
weeks when this feud had been going on. And so I was really hoping that we could get something more like that and not have it all end in tonight's episode, because they were just both hosts so hell bent on it being one or the other.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't expect it to be like so quick of a feud. Like it was really just this one episode. And then obviously we know what happened. So I think with that, like it didn't like I think they just couldn't see past the fact that, or Candace couldn't see past the fact that Rob betrayed her and her fellow traitor Lisa, and that Rob was like, "Well, this is a game," and he wasn't taking it so personally, but obviously Candace was. So once he noticed that shift and that way, that he was like, "All right, well, I'm gonna do what's best for me," and what's best for me is continuing the suspicion on Candace. So that's really what he had to go off of, and he had Colton's word for who he thought, and obviously that's a big play on evidence there of showing that someone who was just murdered also suspected a traitor, you know, like, well, who we know is a traitor, but they don't always know that. And obviously Rob knows that. So it's interesting to see that and how their feud here is evolving throughout. But I think it's definitely, it's like I want to root for both of them too, but it's like, oh, we'll have to see how this all plays out, which we
Yeah.
get this episode.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad at the very least we got, we'll talk about it later, but that very fun conversation, or I guess tense conversation between the two of them right before the round table. And I feel like that's really all I wanted. And so I'm glad that at least we got that moment between the two of them that I thought was a very, very interesting conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Well, next up, we had the mission. And for this, the players had to reenact artwork and take a photo to send to three other players. And they've chosen to be Rob, Kristen, and Mark. And then they're who are all at the gallery and then have to decide which painting the others are trying to act out. And then those at the gallery are the only ones eligible to get a shield. So Kristen ends up with the shield, and $12,000 is added to the prize pot. So, what were your thoughts on this challenge? And did you like think it made sense for the choices of Rob, Kristen, and Mark for those shields?
I mean, I think it says a lot that everyone was just so immediately willing to let Rob be in that group, that I think they really do think that he is a faithful. It's like, I think nobody is going to let somebody who they really suspect to be a traitor to probably be in that group, because that person is more than likely going to know then who has the shield.
Yeah,
Whereas I think they, ideally, faithfuls would want only other faithfuls to be in that group of three, so that then they can potentially protect the name of who has that shield, not let the traitors know, and then see if the traitors try to murder that person. So I think the fact that they allowed Rob to be there, it says a lot about their feeling that he's a faithful and confidence in that. But overall, I thought this challenge was very fun. I mean, it's like one of those challenges that I think is very easy to fast forward through if you're wanting to.
hmm,
But if you watch it, it's actually a very fun challenge. They did the same one on the UK this season that was also very fun. So I was excited when I saw that they were doing it again here.
yeah. I was like half paying attention. Like I paid attention, but also I was like, yeah, I don't need to be listening to the entirety of this mission here. But it was good to see that Kristen ended up with that shield. Obviously, like we haven't really seen a ton of her. It feels like at this point, like now, like she hasn't been talking a ton in episodes, or we haven't at least seen her talking a ton. So I'm hoping maybe we get some more Kristen because she's smart and like has good reads on certain people. So I want to see more of her, but we're getting more of other people at this point.
Yeah, no, I love Kristen. I think that she has so much potential here. I think like she's very smart. She is a seemingly has a really good head on her shoulders, and I think can it come up with has come up with good theories, whether they're right or wrong. They seem to be based in reality. Like her very suspicion of Colton, I thought, even though it was wrong, it made a lot of sense at least. So I feel like that is the mark of a good faithful, is that even when they're wrong, like they're basing their theories off of concrete evidence. And so I hope we get to see more of her. I hope she's not murdered. Mostly, honestly, because she's the last person on my team.
Oh my gosh, I know you're almost out. Traitors
I
draft.
know. I'm like, Kristen, you better hold on here because you are my last hope.
I know that's crazy. Well, I've got Rob, so we're good. Hopefully, I don't know. I have other people too, but
You
yeah,
and Jenna
your team
both, I
is
think, still have like
between.
4 or 5 each. So
Yeah, I know your team is just the one
to be
that's
fair, I had
yeah.
one down because I got first pick. I was one down on
Oh yeah,
numbers. So, but
you
also
already
my team
yeah.
just didn't do very well.
Well, you never
Combination of
know
both.
with traders. It's always so hard to tell if who's gonna make it or not because we didn't even know who the
Yeah.
traders were. So it's
And I think on 49, I was doing very well. I had a lot of people left till the end. I believe maybe that was 48, but I think it was 49.
yeah.
So
Well, maybe you'll have Kristen all the way to the end. You don't know.
who
Maybe she might
knows?
get
We will
yeah.
see.
Keeps getting a shield, maybe.
Oh yeah, she
But
can't be murdered. Okay, yay. Okay,
well, now
so
now she
and
can't.
she's not going to be banished. Like,
Yeah,
right? I mean, unless something major happens, like she won't be the next one banished. So I think we're gonna. Well, I'll at least have her
yeah,
for another episode. So
yeah.
okay, I'll take it.
So you're still good. But then after this mission back at the castle, we see how Candace and Steven are still the names being floated around the most, and Johnny warns Candace that her name is being discussed, and then later, Steven tells her that Colton had been bringing her name up the night before, and this makes Candace believe that Rob must have been putting Colton up to that, and obviously like we didn't see that start like Rob telling Colton, like Colton seemed to have that first. I don't know, editing wise, like how that actually went down, like we're only hearing what we're hearing. But if we were in Candace's position, how do you think you would have handled hearing the information that her name was being discussed?
Yeah, I okay. I am kind of two minds because I think I understand why she did what she did and basically like told Rob like I know what you're hiding and what Colton said and the fact that you know about it. I think though it probably would have been smarter for her to wait until the round table. If you really want to get Rob here, I think what you do is wait till the round table and then say just say, I mean, obviously you can only say so much, but I think you basically say then surprise him with that information. And then I think people can maybe see him be caught off guard a bit and not know how to respond. And then maybe that brings a little bit more suspicion on him than giving him that opportunity to figure out how he's going to respond. Because I think at this point, I don't know that he necessarily before the next conversation that they have. I don't know that he's fully expecting Candace to go full force at him at the round table. And so I think after that conversation, he knows that it's coming. And so he can prepare for it. But I think surprising him with it probably would have been the better move.
Yeah, I agree. I think Candace was thinking about just in general, like she just didn't want to linger on it, I guess, like because it was in her mind, like in that moment, she's like, all right, like let me get to Rob and talk to him about this. And overall, like it would have been like what you're saying, like a better move for her in terms of actually targeting Rob if she was trying to go after him and bringing that up that Colton had obviously been floating her name and seeing if Rob was the one to have told him that. Like that would definitely make him flustered. I mean, I would be if someone was like, "Yeah, like you're the one who said this," and he would have been like, "What?" So I think that would have been interesting, a little part of drama we might have gotten to see, but obviously here we do see Candice and Rob have the talk prior to going into the round table, and she confronts him about her name being out there and that believed that he was the source, but she told him that she thinks he knew about Colton saying her name, or so then she thinks he knew about Colton saying her name, but that's why he was fine with him being murdered, but Colton, or then here are so many names. Then Rob was just like, well, didn't really say anything. He just doesn't deny it. And she calls him a snake and that threatens to throw him under the bus if he gets banished. So I think that overall, then like obviously he thinks that she's taking this all too personally, and he's like, this is all a game here. Like it's okay. Like obviously, like Colton was, well, he didn't say this out loud, but like in his head, like, yeah, Colton was throwing her an email. I'm going to use that to my advantage. But did you think here that Candace was taking it too personally, or what are your thoughts on this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just Candace's personality. That I don't think that she is somebody who's necessarily always going to be willing to do something in the game and betray somebody like Rob did to her and Lisa that she wouldn't do in real life. And she wants to kind of play the game with a certain level of integrity and loyalty that Rob just knows that is able to separate the game from real life in like a gamer would, like pretty much like Rob, Natalie, Ian, all of them would be able to do as well because they play those these games before, and they watch them and they know them. And Candace just isn't somebody who does that. And so she, I think, I figured would be somebody who would probably take the game more personally. It's kind of like how MJ at the end of season 2 was so hurt that Trishelle and CT decided to banish her, even though they knew she was a faithful and could have won that prize with them. But they wanted to get more of the money for themselves. And so they banished MJ, and she still takes it very personally to this day, I believe. And, understandably, but I am not surprised, I guess, that Candace it feels this way and feels so strongly about it. But the
Yeah.
problem is she calls him a snake. For Rob, that's a compliment.
That's true. It is a
So I
compliment.
don't know that that hit the way that she was hoping it would for him.
I know. It does feel like, I mean, obviously, with seeing in the past seasons too, people do take it more personally than others. And Candace did feel that way of like, or to me as well, like a being it, that she's just going to be true to herself. And obviously, she's having to lie, but she doesn't want to go about it in a way that is then going to like hurt other people in that way. And like, she just wants to get by as best she can as the traitor. And then her and Rob obviously are both the traitors here. And so if she feels that Rob really betrayed her trust here and it's just now like no going back, like she's gonna do what she can to try to stay in the game. And it just may be a little too late at this point though.
Yeah, but I loved this conversation. Like I said, I thought this was so like I was glued to my TV watching this. I was like, "Oh wow, this is what you kind of hope for when you get like a traitor on traitor betrayal, and you want them to be able to, because it's so rare that the traitors actually get to talk freely to each other,
I know.
but they guess they just happened to be in this room with nobody anywhere nearby, and they were able to talk freely. And yeah, I thought this was very fascinating.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I was surprised no one else like tried to walk in while they were
I
talking.
know, I was surprised. Like, I feel like they would have, even if anyone was anywhere close, they would have made it look like, oh, is so and
Yeah.
so hearing them talk like this? But no. So I guess I wonder if this was like the producers wanted this conversation to happen, and so they kind of like were able to figure out a way to get everybody else in a completely different part of the castle or outside or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, they even got Steven to leave. So
Yeah,
like
true.
he was already
I
there
guess,
and
yeah, I
he
guess that's true. So I guess they weren't. Everyone else was nearby. So I don't know.
yeah. But I'm glad they had this conversation too. And it definitely was an exciting part of this episode. So then we get to the round table and Johnny mentions that Colton said his name the night before, and Dorinda brings up the fact that Lisa gave him her gold the day during yesterday's mission. So Steven was getting some of that heat there against just because of the gold situation. But it didn't seem that people really on Steven for too long here. Kind of moved quickly then to Candiace because then Eric shifted the focus there due to her throwaway vote for Rob. So obviously bringing that back and showing that doesn't make any sense. And then Candiace goes for Rob, mentioning that the fact that he seemed nervous and dropped his fork at breakfast was a traitor signal. So we get that little piece of fake evidence, I don't know, you could say, from Candiace trying to counteract there. But it did seem like overall more people were on Candiace. But here, obviously, Candiace throwing out Rob's name again isn't going to be great for Rob moving forward. We'll see. Maybe people still do really trust him, but do you think that this accusation is going to put him in a bad position?
I think this is going to be Rob's real first test of how good is he? Is he going to be able to deflect from these accusations that I'm sure people will start to look at him at this point, because clearly Candace, now they know, was a traitor, and she was really intent on focusing on Rob for the last couple of weeks. And I think naturally people are going to start to think, oh, maybe this was traitor on traitor. And so the real test for Rob now is going to be, can he can he deflect from that? Does he have enough relationships and control over these people, his allies, that he can convince them that no, Candace was just, I don't know why she came after me. And I think a lot of people feel like right now Rob is in such an incredible position and has these little minions that are just willing to completely overlook any type of evidence against him and fully believe he's a faithful and could never be a traitor. And is he going to be able to maintain that, or are people going to start to put the pieces together?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's gonna be a big tell this next episode is seeing how he can handle that and if he can backtrack it and have enough support that it's showing that he's not a traitor. We'll have to see. But we did see that the vote here was nearly unanimous for Candace, and except Natalie, she did vote for Tara here. So that's a little bit interesting to see if that's going to come up next week. But obviously, Candace reveals that she is a traitor, and everyone is cheering and excited about it. But going back to Natalie's vote, do you think that people will think she's suspicious by not going for Candace here where everyone else did?
Yeah, that was weird. I don't know why she did that really. I think, I mean, it's another throwaway vote, as Mora would say.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether people, I mean, people already in the past have been suspicious of Natalie. I don't know whether that has kind of subsided by this point, but clearly at the banquet and everything that happened there, people were really looking at Natalie. So I don't know. I don't know why she did that. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see whether that ever comes back up or if it just kind of gets forgotten. Nobody looks at Natalie, and we're left wondering in a few weeks, like, wait, did anyone ever think about that was weird?
Yeah, I feel like Natalie was like barely shown in this episode, but
Yeah,
last episode she was so like, really talked about. So I was like, well, I don't know, maybe they're just not really focusing on her at this point, or maybe they are and they're just not showing us. I mean, they didn't talk about her at the roundtable this week, so I don't know. Maybe it'll come up again after this vote happened, but I don't think people are really suspecting her as much now. But we'll have to see because we do see a certain person, Johnny, is being the main suspect now. Going back to the castle after this was revealed that Candace is the traitor because he was so close to Candace, and that she said at the mission that he should get a shield. So obviously, we know that Johnny is not a traitor here, but do you think that it makes sense for him to be a suspect?
yeah. I mean, I understand kind of what they're getting at there because Candace clearly. But here's the thing: I think that people way too often on traders. Rob says this. Rob Sesternino says this. That it's weird that people think, oh, these two were like very close together in the castle. They must be traitors together. When like traitors are smarter than that. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not going to spend all day together just because they're traitors. Like they're going to. If anything, you should look at what two people don't talk in the castle. I feel like because they're being too careful, and that maybe is more suspicious than two people who are just always very close together. Because I think those are people who feel like they can be close together because they're not hiding anything.
Yeah, oh for sure. I agree with that. Like it's interesting to see that people think that because they're close, but in Johnny's way, he even described it that he's like, well, like before he voted for Candace, he's like, well, she keeping me safe? Like she's his traitor angel by not murdering him throughout the season. That's why he's been there and they've been so close. And so that should be more of a tell than versus like, okay, like he's also a traitor. Like it's more just that she kept him safe and that he's not murdered because of that.
Exactly.
But we'll have to see how that plays out. But then now we have one traitor left, so Rob now has the opportunity to give the ultimatum to someone to become a traitor, and he chooses Eric. And Eric now has to either become a traitor or he will be murdered. And we see them meet up at the end there and ends on that shocking reaction that Eric seems to be totally caught off guard that Rob is a traitor. So, do you think that Eric was the best pick for Rob to seduce? And do you think that if he accepts it, he'll be a good traitor?
Oh my god, I loved his reaction. That
Yeah.
was that was crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think that it probably honestly, I think that either Johnny or Steven would have probably been a better pick
Mhm.
because I think that Rob could have just basically brought them in just to get them out, and that way it's the first male traitor they would have gotten. And I think there, because there's already been suspicion on both of them, getting them out, I think they would have thought, oh, we got out the last original traitor now, because
Yeah.
there's already been suspicion on this person before they were to recruit someone in. So now we're just looking at the recruit. So now we're looking at like who's changed behavior, and Rob would probably be able to a lot more easily deflect any suspicion that was from Candiace or Lisa or whatever, because they think, oh, we don't have to look at those weeks because we've already now, we think, gotten out all the original traitors.
Mhm.
So I think that probably would have been a better move. But I think he just kind of instead went for somebody who's like basically a confirmed faithful and can hopefully actually last longer with him as a traitor. So, I think just different thought process there.
Yeah, I thought he would have gone for Johnny or Steven too more than Eric, but I think in this way then they can really work together closely and then not have to worry about the heat being on a traitor continuing throughout the game now. So we'll have to see if that happens. But I think Eric will be a good traitor, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would have to do something like really change his behavior to be suspect anytime soon. So I think that if he can just kind of maintain status quo, I think that he's in a good position because nobody's looking at him right now.
Yeah. No, no one even thinks once towards Eric. So I think that will be interesting to see how they work together there, but or if he chooses to accept it, which I think he will. Like, there's no way he's going to say
I
no.
would be up in arms if he chooses
Yeah,
to actually die over being a traitor. Like, come on.
yeah,
That would be
that's
crazy.
crazy. He's going to accept. But we'll have to see how that goes next week. And I think that it all covers this episode. Any other thoughts or shares? Is there anything you want to share before we close
No,
the
I
episode?
I thought it was a good episode, and I'm excited. We only have a couple weeks left, so I think that I think we have a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, no, I'm excited as well. I'm excited to see just only a few more weeks, which is crazy. But a lot to happen. I feel like we still got a lot more drama to expect, so that will be fun to see throughout what happens the rest of the season. So be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to continue hearing our takes on traders throughout the end of the season, as well as more exciting shows coming up shortly with Survivor 50 just in a few weeks. So don't want to miss out on that. So make sure you're subscribed and following us on social media at Let's Chat Reality, and we'll chat with y'all again next week. Thanks so much for listening.
Bye, everyone.